If you see me looking down this way, it's because I'm checking my phone video monitor because the Lumix S1 has such terrible autofocus. So if Lumix is watching this, or any other camera brand out there, and they want to send me a camera that actually has decent autofocus so I don't have to look down at my phone to make sure that I'm still in focus on a talking headshot, I would greatly appreciate it. I want to go back to September, and that's when Aaron actually reached out to me. Aaron Harden, he is the director now at the Carnegie Museum in Jackson, Tennessee. And at the time, he was transitioning jobs from being a professor to this director position. And he actually reached out to me on Instagram, and we have been talking for a couple years probably because he does have a small YouTube channel where he talks about photo books and does a little bit more educational stuff on there. But we talked back and forth, and in September, he was like, whenever I get this job, I want to do a solo show for Articles of Virtue. And at the time, I was just like, yeah, whatever. Big talk. But I was very flattered that he even thought about it. And in my head, I was like, I'm not going to get too excited about this because it might not happen. And I didn't just want to get my hopes up. But it was obviously something that I have wanted since starting this project. And the longer this project goes on, I was hoping to get some prints hung up on a wall so people could go and see them in person. First thing that we had to do was plan a little bit of how the actual space was going to look. And he sent me a little mock-up. Previously, I think I had sent him 30 photos, and he wanted to exhibit around 10 to 12 different prints. And he settled on 11 or 12, I can't really remember, but most of them were a good mix of portraits, landscapes, and we decided that we wanted to keep them pretty big. So the smallest size was 16 by 20, and then we had a couple 24 by 30s, and then the biggest ones were 32 by 40. So this led me to the first decision that I had to make, and it was who was I going to use for printing and framing. And you can always go the cheaper route and do C-type prints and cheap frames from Walmart or Hobby Lobby or a place like that. Nothing wrong with that, but for this being my first show, I wanted the quality to be on par with the camera and the scanning that I use. I want the prints to be not only sharp, but I wanted them to be not hidden behind glass and perfectly flat and mounted, so there was no glares. Or I have some prints hanging up on my wall now, and it's just mounted. It's not even mounted, it's just placed in a glass frame, and you can kind of see when the print bends and things like that. So I definitely didn't want that for my first show, but as soon as you start looking at mounting options and framing options, the prices get incredibly high. And I am a pretty, I don't like to spend a lot of money on things. I've used the same digital camera since 2018. I've used the same 4x5 camera since 2020. I don't buy a lot of stuff that I don't need. The only time I ever get clothes is when people give me clothes for a holiday or a birthday. Same thing with shoes, boots. I'm just a pretty simple person when it comes to that, but I know why prints and frames can get so expensive. It's a lot of time, and the whole entire process is very expensive. So I decided to send an email to Whitewall, and I had thought about working with them in the past. They actually reached out to me to do a video, and they wanted me to talk about some different types of papers and show a couple prints on my channel. And at the time, I just didn't really want to do that. And I'm pretty picky when it comes to sponsors and talking about certain things because I don't want to push people in a certain direction. But I've been on YouTube for 5 years now. Since October 2019, and I thought maybe I should finally use this platform in order to benefit myself in some way. So I reached out to Whitewall. I told them what was going on, that I was having an exhibition February 1st. And we started to have a dialogue, and they actually told me that they would pay for the majority of the prints, which I was ecstatic about, because obviously when you do something like this, the cost can be the biggest thing to actually getting it done. And for them to look at my work and look at my channel and say, we want to stand behind this, and we want to be the lab and the framer that prints, mounts, and frames this work, it just speaks volumes about what they care about when it comes to photography. And they could have picked any other person with a huge following or millions of subscribers or followers or whatever you want to call it. But they decided to go with a smaller photographer and take their chance on him, which I greatly appreciated. So they ended up covering probably 80% of the costs. And with 12 prints, it was a lot of money. So I cannot thank them enough. And the entire process with them was incredibly simple. Basically, all I did was, once I got down to the 10 and 12 different photos, they make it simple to download the ICC profiles so you can import them into Photoshop. Different papers they make shadows, highlights, colors just look a little bit different. The tints can be off, the color balance might be off a little bit, but they have profiles that you can import into Photoshop, and then you can make small adjustments, and it will kind of show you what it's going to look like when it is actually printed on that specific paper. So I was just doing their C-type Fujifilm matte paper, and when I imported all of my photos to see what the color profiles would look like, all of my shadows tended to just go towards a little bit blue. So I would just have to warm everything up and then just color balance the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows to make it look how it looked on my computer before. Super simple process, and like I said, they have it for pretty much every paper that they offer. Once I got everything converted to that specific profile, I imported everything onto their website. And this part was actually really cool to use, just because you could see how everything was going to look before you bought it. I decided to go with a floating frame, which is basically a frame with no glass, and then the picture is actually mounted onto a piece of aluminum die bond, and then it is framed. So it looks like it's floating, but it's really just the way that it's built and manufactured inside the frame. I didn't really have a specific color in mind, but when I saw everything online, I liked how this more natural wood looked, even though they have a lot of different options, light, dark. I settled on the lighter wood. A very big thing for me was being able to look at the prints and not have any glare or anything disrupting the actual visual experience of looking at the photo. So I didn't want glass, and I did not want glossy paper. So I settled with a matte paper, and then, like I said, the floating frame has no glass. The paper type, I wasn't really worried about paper weight or anything like that. When you get more expensive papers like Baryta and things like that, their archival properties are greater, so they'll last a little bit longer. And the actual weight of the paper is more like a silver gelatin print or a fiber-based paper. But since my prints were mounted, I really wasn't worried about how it actually felt in your hand, and they were going to be framed anyway, so I really wasn't worried about that. I was a little bit under a tight deadline, so I was not able to send off for print proofs, but you can usually send in a photo and they'll give you either different types of papers or different exposures so you can pick exactly which level of exposure you need for your print, different viewing conditions. I know lighting conditions in a gallery are a lot different than your living room. I have a lot of prints on my walls, and most of them are too dark just because I don't get a lot of light into my house. But since this was going to be under lighting inside the museum, I just kept everything as is, and I didn't need to change any of the exposures or anything like that. A couple of weeks before the show, I wanted to drive down to Jackson, which is about 4 hours away, and I wanted to get some video of Aaron hanging everything, and I also wanted to be with him as he unwrapped everything. And that was just a really special moment because for him, he's doing his first show as a curator and a director of a museum. It's a new job. It might be silly to say that a lot is riding on this, but it's his first show. And for him to give me that opportunity and that chance to show my work, and you guys know how I am. I'm a little self-deprecating. I might not have the most confidence. So seeing him put that confidence in me and to trust my work to put it on the wall of his museum, it's just really cool. And I can't thank him enough for that. And I say this a little bit later on when I make a little speech at the actual opening of the exhibition, but when you're a photographer in 2025 and you're sharing work and you're getting feedback, even someone like myself who has a small following, sometimes you think to yourself, does anyone actually care? Does anyone really care about the work that you're making? And you can get all these comments and you can get likes and shares and messages, but in the real world, is anyone going to show up? Does anyone actually care about the work that you're making? And just for him to say, I care about this work, I think it's important, I think that you're going to have many shows in the future and I want to be your first show, that was enough of a confidence boost to push me for many months and years to come. And I got down there, all the prints were in pristine condition, nothing was wrong with them, and we just had a blast talking, looking at all the prints and hanging them up. February 1st came around very quickly. I honestly was a little worried that it would just be me and some of my friends and family showing up. Even if it were to be like that, I would be extremely happy. But like I said, you put this out into the world and then you wonder if anyone is actually going to show up physically, because it's pretty easy to like something or comment or tell someone that you're going to be there. But when it actually comes down to it, is anyone going to show up? That's what I was worried about. But when I got down there for opening night, it started at 6 p.m. People started coming in, and it was just a very surreal moment to be standing there and people are walking around, pointing, interacting, talking about the work. They're coming up to me, asking me questions. And it was a little bit of a full circle moment for me. And there was one moment when I was down there hanging up the work, and I tried to get out of my head for a second and just look at the work and think back on how I got there. And it was just a really cool 10-second window where I actually stopped thinking about shit for a second. And I thought about my YouTube channel and starting photography and saying that I wanted to do this and that. And then to see it up on the wall and to see everything coming to fruition was just crazy to think. And I quickly got out of my head because I'm always of the belief that I don't want to think too much about that stuff, and I just want to go with my gut and go with my instinct and just see where it takes me. But I had another moment at the show when I was looking around at everyone, and yeah, just to think back on the last 5 years and not knowing how to work a 4x5 camera, and every problem that I had along the way, and every time I doubted myself, it was just like, this is why those things happen. And this is the end result of all those ups and downs of everything. And yeah, it was amazing. A couple of photographer friends from Nashville came, Ian White, Landon Edwards, and Lucas Eichison. And then my buddy Carl came from Kirksville. Those were some of the photographer friends, but then all my friends and family, they came down. My wife's 97, 98, 96-year-old grandma, I don't know how old, she's old. She came down and she was in tears when she came up to me because her husband, the late Mel Zimmerman, was an artist and a photographer himself, and he was a painter. And she was just talking about how much he would have liked seeing this. And it was just a really special moment. And there was a lot of times where things like that happen. And I just think back and I'm like, this is why you go through all that shit to get to this moment and to be able to take it all in. Yeah, but everything went perfect. Honestly, I was very happy with the turnout, and to see that many people show up, it shows that people care. And not only that, but it's worth putting your work out into the world. And it doesn't matter if it's a like or a comment or someone sends you a message. All of that stuff does care, and people do care about your work. And you can't get caught up in all this BS that doesn't matter, the social media stuff, the YouTube stuff. I've done it myself, and like I said, I wanted to make this video, but I also wanted to be a little bit removed from the actual experience. And sitting here talking about it now just really shows how grateful I am that I found photography and I'm able to share this with you guys on YouTube. But I think that's how I want to end this video. And there's going to be a discount code in the description if you want to purchase a print from Whitewall. I would highly suggest it. There's nothing better than seeing your work on the wall, even if it's just in your bedroom, in your office, or in your living room. They were incredible to work with, and they produce really high quality work. But that's all I got to say. Thank you guys so much for following along with me and my channel and my photography. All the comments that you guys leave, it just really means the world to me, and it does not go unnoticed. And this channel probably has pushed me a lot throughout the years, and I'm going to continue to show my process and tell you guys about my ups and downs with everything, because I think you guys and girls get something out of it, and I think it's a net positive for the photography space. So bye. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day. I don't want to say too much. The last time I tried to do this was at my wedding rehearsal, and I got out 2 sentences and started bawling. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out. As a photographer in 2025, it's kind of hard to judge whether or not people actually care about your work. And seeing this just proves to me that a lot of people do, especially all my friends that come from far distances and my family. So yeah, I just want to thank you guys for being here, and I appreciate it. And if you have any questions about anything, just come up to me and talk with me. But thank you very much. Appreciate it.